Hey, it's Dave. So we are now on chapter 2 of The Wish List by Eoin Colfer. I hope you liked the first video, but if you didn't, I hope you left comments. Let's go. Chapter 2 Dead as Doornails. The devil was not happy. Two, he said, drumming filed nails on the desktop. I was expecting two today. Beelzebub shuffled nervously. There are two, Master. Sort of. I have them whatever, in pit 19. Two humans, hissed Satan, tiny lightning bolts sparking between his horns. Not one youth and his dog. How did a dog get in here anyway? They were blended together. One heaven of an accident, stammered his aide-de-camp, consulting a clipboard. The boy is a true disciple, very impressive human cycle. Bullying, torturing animals, theft, murder. A rap sheet as long as your tail. And the dog a real hound of Satan. Tetanus injection sales have risen by 15% in the first quarter. The Lord of Darkness was not impressed. He's a plodder. The dog? No, you cretin. The boy. Unimaginative, brutal. Beelzebub shrugged. Evil is evil, Master. Satan wagged a fine-boned finger. No, you see, that's where you're wrong. That's why you're a minion, and I am the undisputed lord of the underworld. You have no vision, bub, no flair. Beelzebub's fangs quivered in his mouth. He hated being called bub. There wasn't another being in the universe who would dare to use that condescending abbreviation. Well, perhaps just one, a certain saint named Peter. These impulse sinners have no staying power. Their life expectancy is too short for them to wreak any real havoc. One major sin, and they're gone. No planning, you see. No thought of getting away with it. Beelzebub nodded dutifully, as though he didn't get treated to this lecture at least a dozen times a millennium. But you give me one creative sinner and he'll be spreading the gospel of misery for decades before anyone catches him, if ever. True, Master, very true. Satan's eyes narrowed. You wouldn't be patronizing me, would you, bub? No, croaked a very nervous senior demon. Of course not, Master. Glad to hear it, because if I thought for 1 second that I didn't have your undivided attention, I might move you from that apartment overlooking the plain of fire and into the dung pit. Beelzebub flicked a forked tongue over suddenly dry lips. Dung was all very well at work, but you had to switch off sometime. Honestly, Master, the new boy is exceptional, especially in his new state. A bit rough around the edges, certainly, but I'm sure he'll make a fine spit turner. Spit turner, we're up to our wings in spit turners. I need some archdemons, someone with a sense of humor. The devil smoothed his jet-black goatee. The other one, that girl I was planning to greet personally, where is she? Beelzebub flicked a page on his clipboard. Actually, don't tell me. We had her all the way through the tunnel. You lost her. Beelzebub nodded miserably. The one soul I tell you to look out for, and you lose her. I think you're getting a bit old for the job, bub. No, Master, no, stammered Hell's number 2, well aware what happened to demons past their prime. The closed-circuit cameras are down and we have to rely on tunnel mites for information. You know how unreliable they are, especially if they've been chewing soul residue. Satan sighed. Excuses, bub, that's all I'm hearing, excuses. We have all the technology, limbo surveillance, the ectonet, and here we are relying on the gibberings of some inebriated tunnel mites. Miyishi assures me the system will be back online shortly. Satan scowled. Do you know how much that technophile soul cost me? a fortune, and he can't even fix a few monitors. Soon, Master. Now! I want that errant soul found. It could just be snagged on a stalactite in the tunnel. If it's up for grabs, I want it grabbed. But Master, protested Beelzebub, a lawyer's convention bus goes over the Grand Canyon this afternoon. We're expecting a bit of a glut. Satan rose to his hooves. The tailored pinstripe he wore combusted in blue flame, exposing the red sinew beneath. Always the theatrics, thought Beelzebub. I don't care about lawyers. Who's going to sue me? No one. I want that girl. Have you read her file? Did you see what she did to that stepfather of hers? Brilliant. Totally original. The devil's tone became silky smooth, his most seductive and dangerous. Find her for me, bub. Find her and bring her here. I don't care if you have to send a retrieval squad into the tunnel. Get her. Beelzebub waited for the inevitable threat. Because if you don't, I'll be holding interviews for a recently vacated position. He paused pointedly. Yours. Satan loped into a corner and began tearing strips from the suspended carcass of a cow. The meeting was over. Beelzebub barreled down the pulsating corridor, vaporizing drone souls indiscriminately with his trident. Their final squealing sizzle didn't cheer him up like it used to. He hated it when the master got in one of his obsessive moods. He had to have exactly that soul, and no other would do. And God help, Beelzebub blinked nervously. Lucifer helped the demon who disappointed him. He quickened his pace. You shouldn't even think the G word in this building. Somehow the master always knew. What was so special about this particular soul anyway? Some Irish girl. Admittedly, it had always been a bit special when you nabbed someone from the land of saints and scholars, but that golden age was long gone. These days there were as many Irish down here as there were in America. Beelzebub hopped into a gloomy alcove, pulling a black mobile phone from the folds of his silk kaftan. Lovely little thing, all shiny and impressive. Miishi had run him up a pair, top secret. Not even the boss knew about them. Devious, admittedly, but he was, after all, a demon. There were no numbers on the phone pad, just some function buttons. There was a private line. There was only one person he'd ever call. His warty finger hovered over the pad for a moment, then pressed. He had no option. The apartment was at stake, and getting good accommodation in this neighborhood was sheer hell. St. Peter was not happy. If he was such a big-shot holy saint, how come he had to sit outside the gates all the time while the rest of them enjoyed the fruits of heaven? Why couldn't James ever take a turn, or John, or Judas, for that matter? If there was anyone that owed him a favor, it was Judas. There was a strong contingent of the opinion that the tax collector shouldn't be up here at all. And if it hadn't been for yours truly putting in a good word for him, he'd still be floating around purgatory with the rest of the don't-knows. Peter heaved open the cover of his ledger. What he wouldn't give for a good mainframe. A powerful server with plenty of workstations. But you rarely got any computer buffs up at the Pearlies. Most of them came out at the other end of the tunnel, especially since Lucifer began offering his own your own soul after a century deal. So he was still stuck with balancing the accounts manually. The point system was complicated, developed over thousands of years, and of course, new transgressions were added every year. Members of boy bands and mime artists were two recent categories with heavy loading. The system was straightforward enough. Even if you had enough plus points on your sheet to keep you out of hell, that didn't mean you were a shoe-in to heaven. There was purgatory, limbo, or reincarnation as a lower life form. If it was a close call, you got an interview with the chief apostle. Everyone said he was a bit quick with the reject button. 1 million souls on the lower levels prayed for the day Peter got his marching orders. High above Peter's head, the tunnel's mouth pulsated in an azure sky. It was a fantastic sight if you cared to look, but Peter barely spared it a glance. A soul floated from the mouth and ascended gently to the floor of Peter's office. The saint ran his finger down the lists. Luigi Fabrizi, 82. Natural causes. Mi scusi, said the Italian. Behind the line, please, muttered Peter automatically, jabbing his pen at the floor. Mr. Fabrizi glanced downwards. Brass trapdoor hinges protruded from the marble thing. You're cutting it pretty fine, Fabrizi, commented Peter in flawless Italian. The gift of tongues, another little bonus from the boss. Good early life, but you've been a right old nettle for the last 10 years. The Italian shrugged. I am old, it's my prerogative. Peter leaned back. He loved Italians. Oh, really? And where exactly does it say in the Bible? It's not in the good book. I feel it in my heart. Peter ground his back teeth. Who except an Italian would argue at the gates of heaven? He totted up the points quickly. You'd be surprised how all the little misdemeanors added up. I don't know, Luigi, the whole mafioso thing in the 50s. I'm afraid it's put you over the limit. Fabrizi paled. You don't mean... I'm afraid I do, said Peter, reaching covertly beneath the rim of his desk for the limbo button. The Italian clasped his hands in prayer, and the phone rang. Peter rolled his eyes. Beelzebub. Again. Couldn't that demon do anything on his own? He pressed the receive button. Yes, it's me, Beelzebub, came the hushed reply. You don't say. A bit of a problem down here, compadre. I thought you liked problems. Not this kind. My job is on the line. Oh, said Peter. This is a problem. Even though the archangel and the demon came from different ends of the spectrum, theologically speaking, they had, over the past few centuries, established something of a rapport. Nothing major, no exchanging of trade secrets or anything like that, but both men realized the similarities between their jobs. They also realized the mutual benefits of keeping the earthbound spirits from destroying the planet. After all, what would be the point of spirits without bodies? So they kept in touch. So far, their little communiques had averted several presidential assassinations and a world war. If Beelzebub were to be replaced, the new number 2 might not be as accommodating. Ah, mi scusi, Santa Pietro, said the suddenly polite Luigi. Peter waved at him irritably. Oh, go on, Nan, and no more gangster stuff. Si, no more gangster stuff. Luigi skipped towards paradise, his youth miraculously restoring itself with every step. Peter returned to his conversation. So what's the problem, bub? He grinned down the phone line. His opposite number would be spitting fire, but he'd have to swallow it if he wanted a favor. The master is looking for a soul. What about the lawyers' convention? No, a specific soul. I thought if you had her at the Pearlies, we might trade. Out of the question. An innocent in Hades? Can't be done. This is no innocent. We were expecting her down here today. I don't know how she escaped. Peter finger-combed his white beard. Give me the stats. Meg Finn, 14, Irish, gas explosion. Peter flicked to the F's. Finn. Here we are, Meg Finn, nice little line in misdemeanors, not a whole lot on the plus side. Just the one big deposit right here at the end. Hold on, I'll do a count. Peter ran his finger down the good and bad columns, totting up in his head. A frown creased his brow. That can't be right. What's the problem? Hang on there a second, bub. I'm gonna email this to your handset. Miyoshi had equipped the phones with scanners, fax, and email. Peter ran the receiver over the relevant page and hit send. A few seconds later, he heard his counterpart draw a sharp breath. Well, I'll be damned. Peter nearly laughed. You getting the same count as me? Yes, dead even. A balanced account. She saved herself at the last minute. I haven't seen one of these since that rock and roll singer with a hair. Exactly. And look at all the trouble he caused when he went back. Peter was silent for a moment. This is a touchy one, bub. Wars get started over this kind of thing. I know. A single soul becomes very important all of a sudden. We have to leave it alone, Beelzebub. One loose cannon on the mortal plane is enough. Of course, said Beelzebub soothingly. It's out of our hands now. Just let the girl seal her own fate. No one is worth sending in a soul man for. Said Peter, entirely unhappy with Beelzebub's acquiescence. Just as long as we understand each other. Perfectly, hissed the demon, pressing the terminate button. Peter stuffed the mobile into his pocket. This wasn't over. That sneaky tone had crept into Bub's voice. He intended sending a demon to Earth to reclaim the lost soul. A soul man. Peter was certain of it. Beelzebub was going to risk untold repercussions on the mortal plane for the sake of one Irish girl. Who was this Finn person? And why was she suddenly the most popular spirit in the cosmos? Beelzebub stuck his nose out of the shadows. All clear. So Finn got to go back. Well, it wouldn't be for long. He would make sure of that. Just long enough to add a few more points to her negative column. Then Lucifer would have his precious soul. And Beelzebub would hold on to his job until the next crisis. So he had lied to Peter. Big deal. He was a demon, wasn't he? What did that white-suited goody two-shoes expect? That ends chapter 2. So it's becoming interesting so far, and I hope you stick around for chapter 3 onwards. Thanks for watching.